It's your boy Luke, back again for our top value plays here for the Sanderson Farms Championship for Draftkings DFS contest. Here in this quick video, we're going to cover my custom models top 6 plays, priced $7,500 and below for the Draftkings slate. And on top of having solid floor projections, these golfers are going to have the kind of upside necessary to help take down a GPP type of contest. So before we hop into the picks though, just wanted to remind you guys of a live stream I'll be doing tomorrow, Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be our main Draftkings live stream here for the Sanderson Farms Championship. We're going to go over my player poll, some projections, some ownership numbers, some live Q&A, so make sure to stop by with any questions that you have, and I'm going to put a link down in the description for that so you guys can leave a reminder. So again, I already have a course breakdown already on the channel for the Country Club of Jackson, the venue for this week at the Sanderson Farms Championship. We also have a core plays video going over my top options in each price range, so make sure to go ahead and check that out if you haven't already seen them. But without any further delay, let's hop into the picks here for the Sanderson Farms. And now getting into the core plays section of the video, just a couple quick notable players that made my core plays video that I wanted to include here in the value plays section. We had Roger Sloan at $7,000, who had an absolute scorching end to the 2020 season, gained a ton of strokes off the tee, ton of strokes on approach, and you really saw that with his results. Went out there, had probably the best stretch of golf that he's had over his entire career, and somebody I'm targeting here at the beginning of the 2021 season and hope that he's able to ride that kind of momentum into a successful career. But at $6,700, we also had Sam Ryder, who was a top 5 stat fit this weekend. Kind of one of those picks, kind of one of those poppers in the model that make you go, what the fuck are you looking at, right? But I looked into him, has had a ton of ceiling performances with his approach play, also with the putter, and if he ends up putting those two things together, watch out. So a couple notables right there I wanted to mention before we really hopped into it. But at number 6 this week, we're going to have Redman, who at $6,500 is one of my favorite plays, especially in terms of a flying range, and he comes in as my model's number 22 ranked play on the entire slate, a 61.2% cut made percentage, which is really good for somebody in the 6K range, and honestly, somebody who's not going to get a ton of ownership because of the ugly miscut at the Fortinet Championship. It was one of the ugliest that I've seen, one of the ugliest that I can remember for quite some time, and he was inside the cut line by 2 with just 2 holes to play in. Those 2 holes were some of the easiest on the entire course. It was par 4 17th through, could actually be drivable for some of the longer hitters on the tour. And then you had the par 5 18th, which is the easiest hole on the entire golf course. So all I had to do was go out there, play the 2 easiest holes possible to just 1 over par, and he ended up making an ugly bogey on the par 4, went out and completely butchered that par 5. So completely ejected himself, was going to be in contention, and then ended up trunk slamming. And the even more annoying part about the entire ordeal is that he was playing excellent until that point. He had major gains tee to green, looked very good off the tee. He was also able to keep it together around the green, which is something that we don't typically say about Redman. So for him to 3-putt 5 times in 2 rounds, for him to have 2 chip outs sideways in terms of his approach play, it was truly an outlier. He had a lot going against him, so I'm looking for a lot of positive regression in this instance, with numbers a lot closer to what we've seen over the last 24 rounds, which have been absolutely excellent outside the off-the-tee play. In terms of his shots gained numbers, over that stretch, he's gained 0.77 shots gained approach per round and also 0.19 shots gained putting per round, which are very good. You're going to score a lot with those kind of numbers. And at the Fortinet, like I mentioned before, he found a way to gain significantly off the tee, gained over 2 strokes off the tee, also gained over 2 strokes around the green. So if he's able to continue that momentum, if he's able to return to what we saw with the approach play and the putting, watch the hell out. I mean, this guy has exactly what you're looking for at the Country Club of Jackson. Is somebody who's not one of the better drivers of the golf ball, but we've seen a lot of atrocious drivers play really well here at the Fortinet. I mean, guys like Peter Malnati, we actually saw JT Poston finish in the top 3 last year, and sneak peek, he's somebody we're going to be talking about here in about 5-10 minutes. Somebody like Redman could definitely take advantage of this kind of golf course. So he's not my favorite value play on this slate. He is definitely up there, but somebody who has immense upside and somebody who's a very good point per dollar play as well. At number 5 for our value plays this week, we have Taylor Moore, the recent Korn Ferry Tour graduate that I am extremely bullish on coming into this 2021 season. So at $7,100, I really like that price tag. It's a $700 price difference from the Fortinet Championship where he ended up missing a cut. And just like Redman, Moore burned a lot of people with their DFS lineups, and I expect him to come in at a fraction of the ownership as a result. He also gets a huge price decrease, so I like seeing both of those things right there. And again, he was one of the more consistent players on the Korn Ferry Tour. So if Willie Z was going to be your number one Korn Ferry Tour guy, I think Mito Pereira is a clear number two. Taylor Moore was the clear number three in terms of the studs coming out this year. If we take a look at his Korn Ferry Tour stats, he finished the 2020-2021 season top 10 in birdie or better percentage, top 10 in green and regulation percentage, and was also a well above average driver of the golf ball, both in terms of accuracy and his distance. So somebody who can drive the ball really well, somebody who hits a shit ton of greens, and somebody who goes out and converts a lot of those birdie opportunities. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Those metrics were good enough for him to make 28 of 39 cuts over the last 2 years. He was also able to post 13 top 10 finishes, which was number 2 of any Korn Ferry Tour player over that stretch. Like, obviously only behind Willie Z, as you would expect. So I expect Moore to be a less popular option because of those rookie struggles, but I expected those guys to struggle, especially out the first gate, just because of the nerves, right? They're going out there. It's their first ever PGA Tour start, at least with a regular card and that kind of thing. Not making a sponsorship exemption start or anything like that. There was a lot to play for. So for Taylor Moore, somebody who has a very high pedigree, also has a very good course fit here. You know, he's going to hit a ton of greens. He's going to convert on a lot of those birdie or better opportunities. Definitely somebody I'm going to invest in, especially at low ownership. And finally, at number 4, we have Joel Dahmen at $7,400, who also not really popping in my modeling. You can see him there at number 19. I mean, for somebody in this mid $7,000 range, that is good value. But what really gets me excited about Joel Dahmen is his ceiling. He's somebody who definitely pops from time to time. When he doesn't have his best stuff, he can definitely go out there and make a cut. But you really get excited about playing Joel Dahmen when he goes out there and he has one of those nuclear performances. I mean, it happens seemingly once every 1 or 2 months. He goes out there, has a 7 or an 8 under round, and is usually able to carry that kind of momentum throughout the weekend. So he's a little bit of a forgotten man. We haven't really seen him that much on tour, but the reality is he's still playing some excellent golf. And even if it's in some of the smaller field events, it's good to see anyone scoring low. And while it's been very low key, he's made 6 of his last 7 cuts. That's excellent. He also has perhaps the most forgotten top 10 in history at the Barracuda Championship, where we didn't end up getting DFS contests. They had him scheduled to begin the week, actually put out content for it, had it ready for it, and they ended up canceling them last second due to some scoring issues, which honestly they probably should have figured out to begin the week. They knew about the different scoring system on Monday, so they could have set it up then, but a little bit disappointing there. So a lot of people aren't looking at that result as very much, but that field, maybe while it was not the best field in golf, it was also an event where you had to go out, make a crap ton of birdies. You had to play very aggressive. So for him to go out there and have a top 10 there, I love it, right? He's somebody who has that aggressive mindset, wants to go out, make 7 or 8 birdies in a round. And in a fantasy format, that is absolute gold. And statistically, again, we've also seen the stats back up his recent good play. Over his last 24 rounds, he is getting 0.87 shots gained T degree per round. Obviously highlighted by his 0.59 shots gained approach per round, which is top 5 in this field. And while he's not the best putter on tour, we know that for damn sure. Like I mentioned before, he's one of those poppers that can really figure it out quickly and turn it around at a moment's notice. So we haven't seen him at the Sanderson Farms either. He hasn't played here since 2017, but it's seemingly a great course fit. You know, typically if Dahmen's going to go out and struggle with any part of his ball striking, it's going to be off the tee. He's not one of the longer players on tour, also not one of the more accurate players on tour, but here at Country Club of Jackson, where we've seen some atrocious drivers play well, again, I've mentioned that with our first pick there with Doc Redman, Joel Dahmen fits that same kind of bill. You know, a guy that pretty much excels everywhere else on the golf course. And if he brings it with his approach play, if he ends up popping with the putter this week, not only will Joel Dahmen end up finishing in the top 10, which is actually what I have him projected for right now, he could very well end up taking down his second ever PGA Tour win. If you guys haven't seen my Patreon page already, just wanted to introduce you guys to it. It's just $1 for a month, and on there you can get my PGA Tour projections for every player in this week's field. And not only here for the Sanderson Farms, you'll get my projections for every week going forward, including the Shriners next week, all 156 golfers. And it's not just my players' projections in terms of their points. We also go over ownership. We have some game theory notes I put down there, whether they're in my player pool. There's also the Discord, which is getting infamous at this point, a place where you can interact interact with the GSLU community, ask me any questions that you guys have, and bounce ideas off some other bright minds. So overall, really recommend that you guys check it out. Link will be in the description. Again, just $1, one of the best values on the entire industry, and you get access to my projections for every player. So if you don't just want to see my favorite 6 value plays, if you want to see all of the guys priced $7,500 and below and my opinions on them, make sure to go ahead and check that out. Now getting back to the value plays, at number 3 we have Kirk, who is going to cost $7,500 on this slate, but I'm willing to go up that high because he's been Mr. Consistency of late. Comes in at a 74.7% made cut percentage, which is by far number 1 of anyone priced $7,500 and below. And when we take a look at his stats, the pretty picture continues. So he's gaining across the board except off the tee, but most importantly, gaining 0.38 shots gained approach per round, which is what we're used to seeing from Kirk, but giving himself plenty of opportunities to score. And that's exactly what you need at a course like the Country Club of Jackson. And again, he wasn't gaining off the tee. In fact, he's been atrocious off the tee over that stretch, losing 0.331 shots gained off the tee per round. But at a course like the Country Club of Jackson, that's going to be minimalized. We don't have much hazards off the tee. This is also a golf course that's not going to really overpower you with its length. You know, most of the length is baked into these par 5s. So Kirk, somebody who's not typically reaching these par 5s into anyways, really isn't going to have that much of an effect on him. And we've seen him play well at this golf course in the past, so this kind of course fit has played out. He's made all 3 cuts in his 3 appearances there, obviously with a highlight finish there in 2017 with a 2nd place finish. So just last year, we saw a ton of shorter hitters play well here. People like Peter Malnati, JT Poston, Henrik Norlander, Denny McCarthy. Again, that's why I like people like Doc Redman in this type of situation. So the common theme, they all bleed strokes off the tee. So for Kirk, those recent struggles aren't something I'm really considering, or at least holding against him very much. And again, the 3 key stats I'm looking at here are shots gained putting, shots gained approach, and birdie or better percentage. Again, putting, not necessarily his stalwart or anything like that. It's not really what he leans on, but he's been positive of late in the category, and Bermuda is by far his favorite surface. So do expect him to have some success here on these Bermuda grass greens. We've already detailed the strong approach play, and he's top 25 on tour, not just in this field, on tour in birdie or better percentage. So we saw some strong finishes here in 2020 from Kirk, most notably at the Rocket Mortgage. We saw it at the Valero Texas Open and the RBC Heritage, and all 3 of those courses have one thing in common. They're birdie fest. They're courses where you can take them apart with your approach play. So at a course like the Country Club of Jackson, where I expect approach play to be extremely important, same thing with birdie or better percentage, and of course the putting. He's definitely somebody I'm targeting here at that mid $7,000 price tag. At number 2, we have JT Poston, who I considered making the number 1 play this week. Not only do I know somebody who's very close with JT Poston, pretty much talks to him day to day, and has said that, first of all, he's extremely hyped for this event, has pretty much been in the best form he's ever been in his entire life, and goes out and expects to win this event. You know, he has that kind of confidence, and I haven't heard him say that in the past. You know, he's somebody who's usually extremely transparent, usually tells me when he's not playing very well, that sort of thing, and all the reports of late have been very positive on Poston. So at $6,600, he's my model's number 20 ranked play on the slate. So not really sticking out with the key stats, which is a little bit surprising for me. He's been in some really good form of late. So I do think he's a sneaky play this week. You know, even the sharp people that look into these stats, just like me and you, aren't going to be on this guy. But when we take a little bit of a deeper dive into the stats, you really start to see where some of this value comes through. So he had a top 3 finish here in 2020. So coming in with a lot of good vibes here at Country Club of Jackson. And again, he's made the cut in every trip to this event. He absolutely loves this venue. So I kind of understand why he's so confident about this week. Has made the cut in all 5 trips that he's had to Jackson. And on top of the 3rd place finish he had last year, he also had an 11th place finish there in 2019. So somebody who's had a lot of success here has not only just been consistent, but also one of the few tracks where I think he can not only compete, but win. So just like the case with Doc Redman, just like the case there with Kirk, somebody who usually loses off the tee. He's one of the shorter hitters on tour, not very accurate either. But again, both of those aren't issues here at Country Club of Jackson. It's not a course that overpowers you with its length. You're not going to get a ton of hazards that are going to come in play. So the fact that he loses off the tee so much, again, I'm not going to hold it against him. But in terms of the highlights with his profile over his last 24 measured rounds, he's actually gaining strokes off the tee. So we're talking about this narrative where he's been horrible off the tee. And obviously, if we take a more broader look, if we take a look at for his career stats, he's horrible off the tee. He loses nearly a stroke per round for an event. But of late, he's gaining 0.51 shots gained off the tee per round. So the guy has really turned it around. He's really gotten accurate off the tee. He's also been his usual self with the putting, gaining significantly with the flat stick. So the iron play is really what we need to see come around. It's something that comes and goes with Poston. He's kind of a popper like somebody like Redman. So if he goes out there, he putts well this week. Again, we expect that to happen. If he continues that off the tee play, the iron play is really the only missing piece. So a couple other things I want to mention about him is the icing on the cake here. He's a Bermuda specialist. So he gains an extra 0.25 shots gained putting per round on Bermuda grass. And he's already one of the best putters on tour to begin with. So I do expect him to have a very hot putter this week. And again, if he continues that momentum, I think the ceiling is absolutely a win here for JT Poston. And now finally at number 1 for our value picks, we have Adam Schenk at $6,700, who was very surprising when I took a look at my modeling. Ended up as the number 4 ranked play on the entire slate. So not just for our value picks, is just behind Seamus Power, Mito Pereira, and Sam Burns. And if we take a look at his recent stats, it makes perfect sense why he's popping so much. Over his last 24 measured rounds, which excludes his T4 finish at the John Deere, which would obviously help these stats, he's still gaining 0.26 shots gained per round with his ball striking, also gaining 0.55 shots gained putting per round with the flat stick. So he's getting it done essentially across the board. The only position where he's not significantly positive in terms of his shots gained is around the green, which I don't even expect to be a factor here at Country Club of Jackson. And if you haven't seen my course breakdown yet, the reason why I don't expect around the green play to be important at all is because this is the lowest sloped course of all the PGA Tour courses that people play. There's not much undulation on these greens, so even if you're short-sighting yourself, even if you're putting yourself in some of these deep bunkers, I expect these guys to get up and down more often than not. And on top of being in good form, he's also a great course fit. He's somebody who is very good at putting in a birdie fest. We've also seen him do very well on Bermuda grass in the past, as it's his second best surface. He's also one of the highest birdie or better percentage players on tour, ranking number 9 in this field over that stretch in terms of making birdies. And in his 4 trips to Jackson, he's been even better. He's made the cut every single time, and obviously had a highlight finish there in 2018 with a 7th place result. So I do expect him to contend this week, and at his price tag, he has some of the best value on the entire slate. Is potentially somebody who could even go out and get his first ever PGA Tour win. That's all for the value plays. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who your favorite play is on the slate, priced $7,500 and below, for a free chance to earn a month of my Patreon projections. Again, just $1 if you guys don't want to wait for the contest to join, and you get access to my projections for every player in this week's field. As always, guys, I really appreciate you guys stopping by and enjoying the content. If you guys haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and do so. Again, I appreciate the support an absolute ton. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for my top 3 fades and sleeper picks for this week's Sanderson Farms Championship. And make sure to stop by on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the live stream. And until then, good luck and see you guys then.